mind, body, and soul is welcome here. Okay, let's try that one again. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. You're in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. We're in the right place at the right time, and we're just where we're supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting a message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. You're in the right place at the right time, and you're just what you're supposed to be. You're in the right place at the right time, and you're just what you're supposed to be. Never sing the lyrics. We're in the right place, oh, at the right time, and we're just what we're supposed to be. You're in the right place at the right time, and we're just where we're supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. All right.
Thank you, David Rosenblatt. Good morning, I'm Rev.Paula Skiles, joining you from Unity Church of San Marcos. And we have our opening hymn from Daniel Nahmod, and we are so grateful to be able to be with you this morning. As we normally do, we try to open with prayer, so if it feels comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes and let my words be the words of our heart this morning for a few moments. Precious Spirit, we acknowledge your holy presence in our lives today in this moment as we let ourselves remember you and your promises. And one of those is that we are never alone, that you are with us in all ways, always. And for those in this morning who may have forgotten that you are with them, who, for whatever reason, have had difficulties or challenges and are hurting in some way this morning. They cannot touch and feel the sense of your love supporting them. We send forth the energy of our own love to strengthen the influence and the power, the experience that they, our friends, our family, and those we have yet to come to know as friends, have yet to remember in this moment. And so we surround, through the power of our hearts and minds, the persons who need to feel that presence, who need to know your presence, precious Spirit. Do so in this morning, in their time of need, that they remember your power and your grace moves in and through our lives. Your healing affects each and every one of us. And we draw upon that to the greatest degree each of us can. And in this morning, we are grateful for the opportunities that you bring into our lives in which we can share our love, our hearts, and our minds in a sense of openness, receptivity, and light, the wisdom that comes from within us as you. Amen. So as we were saying this morning, we have a wonderful opportunity to be together. In unity, we have what we call the daily word. And today's daily word is remember. And I share with you from our daily word this morning. So I invite you to simply let these words wash through you. I bless the people whose lives have touched mine. I will repeat that just so that we can take it in. I bless the people whose lives have touched mine. Grandparents, parents, siblings, members of my extended family, teachers, friends, co-workers, every person I've known by his or her example helped me feel more deeply what it means to be human. Some have encouraged my curiosity. Some have taught me life skills. Some have modeled positive attitudes and behaviors. Some have loved me fully and unselfishly. And some have helped me learn to love even when loving felt difficult. Today I remember the peoples whose lives have touched mine. I pause to think kindly of each one as I savor memories of the time we spent together. Whether we're still in one another's lives, have lost touch, or are separated by death, I know the experiences we have shared continue to enrich our lives and deeply bless us on our spiritual journeys. And from Romans 1:9, I remember you always in my prayers. And so we do take this time to remember each other and those who are important to us in our prayers and in our thoughts, because honestly, our thoughts do become prayers. So let's take a moment then to acknowledge that this is a time in which we set a time just for God. This is our time to meditate, to reflect, to move into that quiet place where the silence can fill our hearts and minds. And if it feels comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes wherever you are and what you're doing. And allow my voice to lead us inward, to lead you inward. Beyond the stories we might tell ourselves about what's happening in our lives. Beyond the concerns. Deep into that place within our own being, our own heart, where there is a stillness that we can fill with love and serenity and harmony. That place from which the joy of spirit moves into us and through us. Let us receive for a moment that sense of lightening our whole load of cares and worries and just letting them be. We can always pick them up later if we need to. This is God's time. Our time. In prayer, we speak to spirit. But in meditation, we become still so we can hear that still small voice and experience that pure flow of Spirit's life. And so I invite you to breathe in for just a moment, letting that source of our life, who is God, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscience, and the power that moves in and through you and I, reminding us, holding our hands when we need it, talking to us even when we may not be able to hear. Always present. And let yourself sink even more into that quiet. And sense that light within your being, where all the feelings that you hold and all of your thinking is quieted. And just letting yourself feel surrounded and protected in this presence. And if thoughts come your way that distract you from this moment, gently let them go on. No judgments. Just acknowledge that yes, that was a thought. But now it's time to get back. And each time that occurs, just let yourself tell yourself the truth. This is God's time. And I invite you to breathe silently and fully inside your being. Letting go of all the stuff of life with each breath, and feeling the keys to the kingdom of heaven within you. And if it helps, to imagine holding a key, the golden key, to experiencing something more powerful. Just holding that key, knowing that you and your heart and mind are all ready to be opened. And if it helps, feel yourself and sense yourself in your mind's eye, placing that key into whatever place may feel locked up within you and closed off, to feeling Spirit's presence. And placing the key into that locked off place, I invite you now to intentionally turn it and sense the opening and the wonder that waits just beyond. This is something that's familiar. Feeling of coming home. And a sense of looking inward and upward and outward at the same time. And I invite you now to feel that omnipresence and breathe it in. Letting yourself connect and feel that sense of communion with Spirit. That perhaps for a moment you have forgotten, and the time to remember is now. Deep breath in and out. You relax even more into this beautiful sense of spirit into the silence in which you listen, with your heart and mind and your very being, every cell of your being, to hold to a knowings that comes straight from spirit that are yours today. And feeling that light surrounding you. Letting the sense of love flow through you. Connecting to a sense of God's power as the ultimate reality that you hold. Know that God is bigger than all things that are occurring in your life. And if for a moment you cannot hold that, ask God to help you to know it. For Spirit is watching over you in this and in all things. And so I invite you to let yourself become fully present in this moment now. Moving your fingers and toes so that you get yourself connected to your body again. Letting yourself place no conditions in this moment. No holding back. But feeling yourself in that flow that is certain and aware. And so we do come back into awareness. David, would you share with us this morning?
Yes. I'm going to do, actually it's funny, both songs that I'm doing this morning are on the same subject. They're both songs I've written 7 years apart. This first one is one I wrote with my partner, Kirsten, immediately before COVID. And it's about lifting the veils. It's about truth. And I know your message is somewhat about truth today. And so truth in knowing that love is what we are. And actually both songs I'm doing today deal with that. So I think it's suitable. Imagine yourself on a beach, looking at a blue sky, feeling the water, and feeling what we're made of, and veils lifting up. Blue sky teal, love is revealed, so is truth. On a sunlit field, our pact was sealed. By the wayside, our fears melt in the sand. Facade went out with the tide, and truth's the only thing in hand. It's simple to see that love is who we are, and love is what we are. The layers were peeled, you can see it in their eyes. The love is revealed in the truth, and the old way dies. It's simple to see that love is who we are, and love is what we are. is revealed.
Thank you, David. So as we move into this morning, truth is revealed. And that's one of the good things about truth, is that Spirit will always reveal truth to us. And we can actually feel truth when we experience it, can't we? You know, there was a statement made by Oliver Wendell Holmes. And he said, pretty much all the honest truth-telling that is in the world is done by children. So my message today is titled Truth Telling, and it's about understanding, and I'm hoping to help us understand more truth about heaven on earth. So that is my hope for us today through this message and allowing. So I'm going to ask you, if you would, walk with me in your imagination for a few moments, back to this scene from the Bible, because there is a young girl who has something that I believe she has to tell us. She says, "My name is Abigail, and it means my father is joy. Although he hasn't seemed to be very joyful lately, I wish that the grown-ups would let me ask questions more. You know, I'm kind of afraid a little bit right now because one of my friends died having a baby not too long ago. And right now, my father, because I'm 11, is arranging for me to be married soon too. And I have questions about what happens when we die and why things are the way they are and all the rules we have to follow. And sometimes all I get is, don't bother me now. Or, you know, grown-ups, like, it's because that's the way God commanded it. And that's supposed to answer it. And sometimes I wonder if they really even know the answers. Anyway, there was one person, though, who was really different. And I remember this one day when he came to and through our village. And there was a bunch of us young people who, after our chores, had been allowed some free time. Now, I have to tell you, I don't get much of that anymore, but I happened to be with some of the rest of the kids when he came through, and what I remember most is he was smiling. And I noticed that because not a very many grown-ups smile a lot anymore that I see. And I just remember he had this wonderful laugh. And so some of us kids decided to try and get closer because we had been told that he was a teacher who taught truth-telling stories. And we wanted to hear some. And I thought maybe we could hear, and I might learn some of my questions' answers. And so we tried. And all these guys that are around him, they just said, no, don't bother him. But he happened to notice us and said, let the children come near me. He said, don't stop them. And he held out his hands, and we ran over to where he was. And he sat down with us and began to talk with us and shared with us some of those truth-telling stories. And I tell you, I began to get a sense, more of a sense, that made sense of God and how to live life and all kinds of wonderful things about heaven. And it just made me feel so much more at peace. I heard that after he left, that he went to another town. Now, our town talked about him for a long time, and we really liked him. But this other people in this other town didn't like him, and they killed him. I wished he'd have stayed in my town because I know we would have been friends. And I think he would have continued to teach even us girls, because usually it's only the boys who get taught important stuff. But he would have continued to teach all of us about truth and God and how to know more about how to live life. Those truth-telling stories are what Jesus was famous for. John Adams said there are two educations. One should teach us how to make a living, and the other how to live. So let's take a moment to examine for just a moment what the main message for Jesus was about bringing heaven to earth and experiencing God in our lives here, not having to wait for some heaven that's beyond. And it is so important to his message. It was so vital to him. So I think of it as he taught people truth-telling stories about how to live life. He was educating you and I about how to live life here, now, with a sense of heaven on earth. So what would heaven be? I thought about that, and so I decided, well, let's go to our friendly Webster's dictionary for a definition, right? And so it's a place or condition of joy, a spiritual state of everlasting communion with God. Okay. Well, as far as I know, there have been a number of teachers in our world. But the one that I can relate to best is Jesus. And he to me was one of the best examples of a human who has raised to that level of consciousness of heaven. Because I really believe that's how he performed and did so many of the miracles in his life, was he was living from that place, what we call Christ consciousness. Now, we called him Jesus Christ, not because Christ was his last name, but because he represented that saving grace, that Messiah, that aspect of life that you and I usually seek when we're in the most difficult times in our lives, right? So what is Christ consciousness? I think of it this way. It's when my mind is in direct communion with Spirit and I am connected so fully that I actually do have the mind that Jesus had at his time of living here. I honestly take his words to heart. I don't feel like he was teaching us something that was meant only for holy people or people who are special, who want to just simply devote their lives to living in a cave or whatever so that they don't have to deal with stuff and real life. I think he dealt with real life. I think he walked real life. And so I'm thinking that's what I would like to share for this morning is how do we go about bringing heaven on earth into my life, your life? How? So heaven, to me, essentially is that when we talk about a condition of joy, what does it take? It takes a mindset that what we call sin, which means error thinking, essentially. It means missing the mark. It was an archery term, the word sin. It means missing the mark, quite literally. So as you and I sin, it means that we're out of sequence, or we're not quite in the flow, and we're making choices or decisions based on not being connected to that sense of Spirit, God. Okay? So to me, it's when sin is absent and you and I are in harmony with that flow and congruent with our thinking and our feeling with Spirit and connected. So that means Christ consciousness is possible for you and me. Okay, so let's continue. Let's think about the words harmony. Why is it so important? Why do we look for this harmony, this heaven on earth? Because I'll tell you something, the honest reality is it helps you and I to adapt into the changes that happen in our life, to the difficulties that come in our life. Harmony is a principle that we can bring into our being in order to more readily accept differences of opinion or interests that other people have without feeling like we have to make them bad or wrong. So harmony is a principle that we can draw upon that is the very essence of one of the attributes of Spirit. And as a result, when you and I are feeling that harmony and when we're connecting and letting go of some of our preconceived ideas is how I see it, then joy becomes our natural state. And that joy is what lifts us up into that sense of heaven on earth. That joy that you and I feel is more than an elation. It's definitely more than just happiness. It's an experience in which you and I, to the very cells of our being, just have this sense of delight and exhilaration that goes in and through us. And it moves us and helps us to be more in each moment of who we shall and want to be. Not only is there a sense of well-being, but it's a sense of contentment that our world and what we are doing, we're connecting to it. And we get the sense of how you and I can best make a choice and what those look like more readily, more easily. So, one of my favorite pictures for me personally is what they call the laughing Jesus. How many of you have seen it? Have you seen that picture where his head is thrown back and he's laughing and you can just see the joy? Talk about a truth-telling picture. Oh my gosh. And every time I see it, I think about, and my heart just expands. And I think about, this was what the people really connected to. This was the Jesus that people connected to. I really honestly connect to that sense. How about you? Do you? Okay. So, how many of our days are usually spent living in a very serious world filled with trials and uncertainty? I'm sure at least one of us have. We're only going to say one, right? But just for today, let me challenge you. Let my words challenge you, and if nothing else, the sense of what I'm trying to convey challenge you to a sense of joy. To discover harmony and what it could bring into your own life, and letting that spirit of joy flow through you today. So if you haven't been challenged lately, if you haven't even felt joy lately, let yourself open to that. So let's keep these three words, heaven, joy, and harmony, in the forefront as I continue with our truth-telling from another perspective, from another child in the Bible. So, pretend with me for a moment. My name is Aaron, and my friend David and I had already finished doing all the chores. We had to get the water from the well and bring it back to the house, and then we had to get all of the things ready for the wood, for the fire, and all of the things that we needed to do. But we finally got ready, and my neighbor came over, and he was so excited. He was telling us about this rabbi who had been going through the countryside and creating so much excitement because we had heard that he healed people, even lepers. And I asked my mother if I could go and see him and listen to him. Now, you know moms. She's like, don't get in the way. Don't make a pest of yourself. You know all the lessons. We hear them. Anyway, so finally she said I can go. But then she asked when I was going to be back. And I had to say I really didn't know. Maybe even late. And then, of course, she got worried all over again. So, again, she finally came and said, okay. And she made me this wonderful lunch with some smoked fish and some bread because she had to remind me there wouldn't be any place out there I was going to get something to eat because it was going to be on the hillside, I heard. And then she started off into where she was thinking, oh my God, she's going to get lost. And I told her, just look, all the people are walking. I'll just follow them. And so she said, okay. So for all the people, it really, I didn't get lost because there were so many people. There were lots of people. They must have been coming from every town or in the villages all around us. And when I got there, the hill was covered with people. Covered with people. And this rabbi, he said his name was Jesus. What a voice he had. He could be heard. Now, of course, everybody was really quiet because they really wanted to hear. And they all sat down and they really listened. And he told stories about God and about heaven and how we should love one another, even those people who hurt us. And he just told so many stories, and I could understand what he was saying. And I thought about it, and I just, I was something in me was changing, and I watched him, and I could see he was different. Well, before I knew it, it was really late, and one of the men that was with him asked, is there anyone who has food that they would share? And how many people would share of what they had, because there were a lot of people who had forgotten and didn't bring something to eat. Now, I didn't know what a few smoked fish and some bread could do, but I ran right up there and I gave it all to him and said, here, use this. And Jesus smiled at me. I'll never forget that smile. And he took my food and he blessed it and he raised it above his head and he thanked God for this. And he began to walk through and pass it out. And as he did, you could see something happening with people, and they began to put forward their own foods, and everything changed, and it was such a different day. And when everything was done and everybody had eaten, there were even leftovers. I was amazed, because there were probably thousands of people there. And you know what? No one left hungry. Everyone had been fed. And then they went home. And as I was leaving, Jesus sought me out, and he talked to me, just me, for a few minutes, and thanked me for helping to help other people to feel a sense of giving in their world and a little bit of the heaven on earth that he was trying to teach. And I could see it. I could see what he was talking about. It was a miracle. What a day. I'll never forget it. Now, young Aaron seemed to really hear Jesus' truth message and his truth-telling message to that day, and all days beyond, I think, changed him. I know it changes you and me if we let it. Do you remember the 2004 documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know? Okay. Well, one of the researchers who was interviewed in that movie was Dr. Masaru Emoto. Dr. Emoto studied water in a controlled environment, and his theory was that the molecules of water could respond to the energy of words. And he played different kinds of music. And what he did was took a high-speed camera and took a picture of the molecules. And when he played heavy metal music, the water formed different shapes than when he played symphonic classical music. And then the water, when it was exposed to harsh and negative, emotionally critical words, created broken crystal formations. But when it was surrounded and spoken over with loving and harmonious words, kind and uplifting words, it created wonderful, beautiful bond displays. So here's what I think this teaches us. I think that there's a truth in here for you and I. Think on this. Your body, my body, our bodies are soft and fluid. They're not hard like this lectern, all right? And with each cell, they have intelligence within us, all right? We're not hard. We're not solid. We are mostly fluid. And fluid acts as a natural carrier for energy. Even the bones in our body have water that flows through them. And so because we are so fluid, what I get is that the energy, remember I was talking earlier about the Christ consciousness and how our thinking is affected by the error thinking? when we get through and we have those kinds of things go through us and we dwell on them, here's what I believe, is that these thoughts, which is our combination of our thinking and feeling, these thoughts shape and reshape and mold our body and cells. They either build it up or they tear it down. And I think that heaven and earth is connected to the building up. And I believe that that was something that was why it was so important for Jesus to teach us. What would heaven on earth be like? And is it really so attainable? Is it really? I think sometimes that we have created these preconceptions about heaven as being this far off thing that we can't have because, remember back to what I said earlier, I'm not good enough, I'm not holy, I'm not whatever. And I think those are those messages that go deep into the cells of our body, and they just create this barrier. And Jesus said, except you come to this as a little child. This is what Abigail heard. Except you come to this as a little child, you shall not be able to enter into it. And you and I have an opportunity to let go of our preconceptions. You and I have an opportunity to choose what we shall dwell on. Now, I think about, what does that mean to be like a child? And I don't think it means immature. I think it means teachable, open-minded, more accepting of something someone is telling us without this guarded, closed-off disconnect. And I think that the kingdom of heaven that Jesus was talking about, it's not like a physical realm. It's a state of mind for you and I. And it's not just for someone, and it's not just in little moments here and there. And so what I've come to understand is that for myself, I haven't heard any better way to do this from any other teachers, and I've listened to and think about a lot of different teachers. But I'm practicing on being younger in my heart and mind. I'm practicing on being more open and receptive and paying attention to what I'm telling myself and others in my day-to-day and letting myself dwell on. So I invite you, remember I challenged you earlier? I invite you to be willing and open and receptive to heaven on earth and the harmony and joy that is meant to be yours. God bless you. David, what are we sharing for our time this afternoon?
More truth, more love, more gratitude. This is a song that I wrote a long time ago. It's called Infinite Love and Gratitude. It's dealing with realizing the love that you are. Again, it's very similar to the last song topic-wise. It's got a little bit of an Eastern tinge to it. You may have heard this before. Breaking through to find my way, remaining present here to It's true. Mama, na,
Thank you, David.
Thank you. That was the Reader's Digest, the shortened version of that song. It could go on for quite a while.
So this is our time for sharing and giving. If you would, take a moment to hold that which you would like to share with us this morning. And if you would, and join me in our affirmation. Divine love as me blesses and increases all that I give, all that I receive, all that I have, and all that I am. For God is my source, and abundance is my nature. And so it is. We share. Thank you. If you'd like to share with us online, please go to unitychurchofsanmarcos.org. Thank you for being with us. God bless you.